So do you think that the advice to divide perennials is for perfectionist gardeners only? That's certainly what I thought. I thought, oh, well, I enjoy things making a clump. I don't really have to. And of course, I worried that if I dug the plants up and divided them, I could damage them. And then when I put them back, they wouldn't flower and I'd have a gap in the garden. But that really isn't something you need to worry about. And I'll explain why. It's Alexandra here from the Middlesized Garden YouTube channel and blog, and we're talking about dividing perennials today. So why do you need to divide perennials? When you plant some plants like irises or dahlias or daylilies or phlomis or asters or ornamental grasses, you plant the plant in there, and over the years the roots or the corms or the rhizomes, they clump outwards, and so you get a sort of ring of plants around the original plant, and then the original plant dies off, so you get a sort of bald patch in the middle, and that gets colonised by weeds. But plants that do this can be quite aggressive, so they may actually take over the space that you needed for the other plants in your borders, so other plants die, and in the end you've got a few really kind of quite aggressive thugs and not many of the plants that you actually chose. So the plants that don't need dividing are things like shrubs and roses. You basically plant them in one place and they stay in that place. They can get very big. They can even get too big for the spot. But they're not going to go wandering off down the bed creating new colonies. And it's the ones that go wandering off down the bed that create the new colonies that are going to crowd other plants out. For example, daylilies. I dug out a huge number of daylilies and divided them last March. I really need to do it again now. So that's why it's a good idea every 2 or 3 years to have a look at your perennials and to work out which ones are growing into very large clumps and have a bald patch in the middle, and those are the ones that you want to lift and divide. So a lot of people then want to know when do you divide perennials? Either spring or autumn should be fine. If you're thinking about individual plants, you can check online for what the experts say, and you'll sometimes find that they say, oh, divide them in autumn or divide them in spring, but they don't always agree. And I think on the whole you're pretty safe dividing plants in either spring or autumn. The reason why you can't do them in either summer or winter is that plants will be under stress if they have to deal with very hot, dry weather or very cold, wet weather just after they've been lifted, cut up, divided and put back into the soil. So, how do you actually divide the perennials? It really is as simple as dig up the whole clump. We've had a lot of very dry weather recently, so I soaked the soil around these Iris sibirica before we were going to lift them up. Even so, I put my spade in and I really couldn't get them up at all. So I got my husband with a bigger spade to get them up. And he thought that I wanted to throw the plants away, that I was digging them up because I didn't want them. I went off to do something else and I came back to find him picking the plants up, shaking them really hard to get the soil off and then throwing them over his shoulder. And they were all sitting in a heap on the lawn. And I have to say that even that rough treatment has not done them any harm at all. The next step that you need to do is to actually divide the plants. And I looked at a lot of videos and read quite a lot of things, and it said things like gently tease the roots apart. Well, there's no teasing of roots apart for Iris sibirica, I can tell you. I wrestled with the roots for about 5 minutes and got absolutely nowhere. So the next step is to take a spade and you jam the spade down really hard and you slice the roots open, and you will cut some roots, but provided there's enough root left, it'll be fine. So don't worry too much about damaging the roots. Particularly when you're dividing plants, you'll probably have about 3 times as many plants as you want to replant, so you have got a bit of scope. So I put the spade down in the roots and I put my foot on the spade and then put all my weight on the spade, and absolutely nothing happened. And a friend tried as well, and all that happened was that we wobbled about on top of the spade and eventually had to jump off before we fell off. So the next thing you can do is use a knife. And I did manage to get a few of the outer roots cut with the knife. And then I went back to the spade, and in the end it was a mixture between wrestling, spade, knife, wrestling, spade, knife, and I managed to get 3 clumps off this main clump of iris to replant. In terms of the size of the clump, you're looking for something that would probably be about what you would buy in a garden centre in a 3-litre pot. And then it's important to replant it immediately. I have to say what I really wanted to do was to go to bed, but I had to get them in immediately, so I did. And I planted holes, and you need to plant the holes as far apart as the plants would be had you just bought them new from a garden centre. So once again, look up Iris sibirica, for example, on the internet. This one needs 8 to 12 inches the plants apart, so I planted 3 holes 8 to 12 inches apart. Then add some fertiliser. I threw in some blood, fish and bone, which the dog started to eat. So I got the plants in really quickly and backfilled the holes and then watered it in. And you need to water it in because this really gives the plants a very good start, and also it waters away the last of the blood, fish and bone and stops the dog eating it. So which perennials need dividing? There are lots and lots of perennials that need dividing. Asters, Symphia trichum, irises, bergenia, geraniums often do, hellebores, hostas, daylilies. This is Nepeta here, Nepeta Six Hills Giant, and it was sprawling absolutely everywhere, so I dug it up and divided it last fall, and it's coming back beautifully, as you can see. I'm afraid it's completely surrounded by terrible ground elder, which I've obviously got to dig up. When I walked around my garden for this video, I realised there were about 5 or 6 different clumps of plants that had got far too big. This is bergenia, and it's just finished flowering. It's got a lovely pink flower, and this has actually just completely spread so much. It doesn't seem to have a bald patch in the middle, but that might be because it's growing against 2 walls. There are some plants that come into the dividing perennials lists, which not everyone agrees on, and one of those is peonies. You will see time to lift and divide peonies in some of the to-do lists, but other experts say that don't lift and divide peonies. And I think with this, I would just go with your instinct. The peonies in my garden really haven't clumped up. They haven't grown, they haven't spread, they certainly don't have a circle and a bald patch. So I don't really see any reason to lift and divide them unless I wanted to create more peony plants. Dividing plants is a really good thing to do if, for example, you're moving house. You could lift your plants up, put some of them in a pot and take them onto the new home, and then put the others back in the soil for the next people to enjoy. You will, when you lift and divide plants, have quite a lot of plants left over, so you can give them to friends or donate them to charity plant sales, but don't forget to pick any roots of weeds, perennial weeds, out of them, and also don't forget to label them. There's a playlist of gardening techniques I've put together at the end of this video, so if you're interested in how-tos, then do look at that and let me know in the comments below if there are any particular how-tos you'd like me to tackle. And if you want more tips, ideas and inspiration for your middle-sized garden, then do subscribe to the Middlesized Garden YouTube channel, and thank you for watching. Goodbye!